I fled my monster groom and joined the army disguised as a man. I thought I was safe until I met my commander. He isn't a monster, he's the most handsome man I've ever seen. And he's the husband I was supposed to marry. Turns out, on the night I ran from him, he was running from me too. The emperor decreed a marriage and bestowed me upon the great general who guards the nation. They said the general was 9 feet tall, strong as an ox, his face covered in scars, so ugly no one could bear to look at him. They also said every wife he'd taken had died on her wedding night. My parents cried until they fainted. I refused to accept my fate. On the day of the wedding, I tore off my bridal robes, changed into the servant boy's clothes I'd prepared long ago, and climbed out the window to escape. I stumbled out of the residence in a daze. Standing in the vast capital city, I had no idea where to go. My father was only a minor vice minister in the Ministry of Revenue. He couldn't protect me. If I were caught and dragged back, it would end miserably. So why not leave the city altogether? Just then, a camp was recruiting clerks. I was afraid I'd be stopped at the gates, so I relied on the few characters I could read and managed to blend in. By the time the sky darkened, we finally left the city. I was just about to slip away quietly when the man in charge suddenly called out to me, "Ethan Lan, get over here." My heart seized. Before I could say a word, he hauled me to a carriage. "General, this is the new clerk we recruited. He knows a few characters. Think he'll do?" The man seated in the place of honor was imposing and tall, but his face was strikingly handsome. His gaze swept over me as he asked coolly, "What's your name?" I lowered my head. "Ethan Lan." Lan was my mother's surname. The general clicked his tongue in disgust. "All skin and bones, weak constitution. Fine. Keep him for now. Ethan Lan, come here and grind ink for me." If I stayed at his side, how was I supposed to escape? I sighed inwardly, resigned myself to it, and went to grind ink for him. The general glanced at me again. "My surname is Ling. My given name is Alexander. Remember it." "Alexander Ling? Wasn't that my imperial appointed husband? Today was supposed to be our wedding day, so why had he run away too?" Still, Alexander Ling wasn't the terrifying brute the rumors described. He had blood on his hands, yet he looked refined, almost scholarly. In profile, his features were clean and handsome, his bearing elegant. I ground ink while stealing glances at him. But since he'd run away too, it had to mean he looked down on me. I needed to find a chance to run. Alexander Ling lifted a hand and tossed a thick stack of documents at me, telling me to draft replies and make copies. The carriage jolted along. I kept my head down writing all day, nauseated from the constant shaking. When we finally made camp to rest, I was assigned to sleep in Alexander Ling's tent. I went pale. "General, that isn't appropriate." As he undressed, he said, "We're all men. What's inappropriate? Sleep on the small cot beside mine. That way I can call on you easily." I couldn't help rolling my eyes. I'd been pampered for over a decade, and now I had to sleep in the same tent as a man just so he could order me around? If my father found out, he'd break my legs. In the end, I slept fully dressed. Alexander Ling said nothing, assuming I was just a shy young lad. A woman mixed into the army really did have it hard. Eating, drinking, relieving myself, any of it could give me away. Staying in Alexander Ling's tent was better. It gave me cover, especially when it came to bathing. As for seeing a man's body, the first time was shocking. The second time, you got used to it. Every time Alexander Ling bathed, he did it in the tent. I would scrub his back. After he finished and went outside to dress, I'd quickly wash myself while no one was watching. Today was no different. Alexander Ling finished bathing and went to the outer area to change, leaving me to tidy up. With steam still hanging in the air, I hurriedly undressed and slipped into the tub for a quick wash. Even though he was a great general, he cared about appearances. He bathed and changed daily, so his bathwater wasn't exactly dirty. That's what I told myself. But the next instant, footsteps sounded. "Ethan Lan, you!" He lifted the curtain and stepped back in. Then he froze, staring at me in the tub. I quickly sank lower into the water and said, "Guilty, General." "The water isn't dirty. I thought it would be a waste." He looked utterly stunned. After a long moment, he said wearily, "Come out when you're done. I have something for you." Yes, I finally sent that menace away and let out a quiet breath. Just as I was about to climb out, my lower abdomen cramped. A warm flow spilled out. Damn it. My period had come. Luckily, I'd prepared. I grabbed the cloth strips from my bundle. After a frantic struggle, I finally got myself sorted out, then turned back to deal with the water in the tub. Alexander Ling waited outside, growing impatient. "Ethan Lan, hurry up!" "Right away." Once I was dressed again in men's clothes, I felt steadier. I answered in a low voice. Alexander Ling strode in. Seeing me still scooping water, he clicked his tongue in disgust. Then he wrapped both arms around the tub and lifted it. This wooden tub, filled to the brim, had to weigh at least 200 pounds. He lifted it as if it were nothing. I looked down at my own stick-thin arms and fell silent. He carried the tub out, dumped it clean, then brought it back. After that, he motioned for me to follow him out. I'd only taken a step when he said, "Wait." He stopped. His sharp brows drew together. He bent down and stared at a faint red stain on the ground. My face burned. It was blood I'd dripped in my haste. Something so small, and he'd still spotted it. The real problem was, how was I supposed to explain where it came from? Alexander Ling's gaze snapped to me. "You're injured?" I quickly stepped back. "No, General." "Then where did this blood come from?" His eyes turned razor-sharp, like a blade pressed to my heart, so oppressive I could barely breathe. I knew what he was thinking. He suspected I was hiding someone. In the army, that was no small matter. I clenched my teeth. "Actually, I got hurt by accident." His brows eased at once. He strode toward me. "You should have said so. Where are you hurt?" "Let me see." A man's strength was terrifying. Once he grabbed me, I couldn't break free. He yanked up my sleeve, found no wound, and then reached for my collar. I surged with sudden strength and shoved him away. Stammering, I said, I'm fine. It's just a small injury. It already scabbed over." He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "You scabbed over the moment you got hurt? What kind of body do you have?" Thankfully, he didn't press further. He just ordered me out to work. Only then did the heart lodged in my throat drop back into my chest. But this couldn't go on. Living with him day and night, I'd be exposed sooner or later. When that happened, what then? I'd be punished for a grave offense. I began planning my escape. That night, though, I developed a fever. Maybe my period had left me weak, and the fright hadn't helped. In the night, half conscious, I wrapped myself tight in my blanket and still couldn't get warm. My teeth chattered nonstop. Alexander Ling's bed wasn't far away. He tossed and turned, unable to sleep either. Suddenly he sat up and barked. "Ethan Lan, what are you doing?" I didn't have the strength to answer. I kept trembling, my head and stomach aching, letting out muffled groans now and then. In my haze, a warm embrace pulled me in. Like a drowning person clinging to driftwood, I latched onto him and wouldn't let go. His arms were so warm, like my mother's. "Mom?" Satisfied, I nuzzled closer and fell asleep. When I woke again, it was daylight. The fever had broken. I sat up and realized I was in Alexander Ling's bed, wrapped in a thick quilt. That must have been how I'd sweated the fever out. Footsteps sounded. I looked up. It was the deputy commander, Lucas Yang. Because I served at Alexander Ling's side, I often saw Lucas Yang too. He was straightforward and cheerful, quick with a joke, like a warm-hearted older brother. "Ethan Lan, you're awake? Drink your medicine." The moment he saw my eyes open, he shoved a bowl into my hands, sat down, and started chattering. "You wouldn't stop burning up last night. Even the army physician couldn't do anything. The boss said if you kept burning, he'd leave you in town and not take you with us." I asked, stunned. "I wouldn't stop burning up?" Lucas Yang clicked his tongue. "You don't even know. When I brought the physician over, you were hugging the boss and calling him Mom. And I'm telling you, even sick, you're strong. The physician and I together couldn't pry you off him." Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I hugged General Ling and called him Mom? Lucas Yang nodded. "You should have seen how dark the general's face was last night. I heard he's sharpening his blade right now. Probably thinking about how to deal with you." Sharpening his blade? My neck went cold. I drained the medicine and jumped off the bed, ready to pack up and run. Lucas Yang burst out laughing. "I'm messing with you, idiot. The general isn't that heartless. You're sick. Just rest. You don't need to serve him today." I forced a stiff smile. "Thanks, Lucas." After tidying myself up, I stepped out of the tent. Alexander Ling was drilling the soldiers. They just paused to rest. He strode over, frowning at me. "Why are you so pale? Still feverish?" His hand reached toward me. I dodged on instinct. His hand hung awkwardly by my forehead. The air turned instantly tense. I wanted to bite my own tongue. Why did I dodge? General, I'm fine. The fever's gone. I looked bad because of my period, not because of a fever. He nodded, only half convinced, and turned back to training. But the glance he threw me as he left held something I couldn't name. And when I remembered how I'd hugged him and called him Mom last night, everything felt even stranger. That night, as I was about to sleep, Alexander Ling suddenly told me to get into his bed. My hair nearly stood on end. General, you can't. His fierce eyes pinned me in place. Why can't I? What if you get a fever again? 2 people together will be warmer. Get over here. I hesitated, but he grew impatient. That sharp look made it seem like he'd come and drag me over himself. After refusing again and again to no effect, I could only inch toward the bed. There was only one thick quilt. He was already lying comfortably under it. I sat on the edge, miserable, not knowing what to do with myself. What are you waiting for? Get in. He reached out, hooked an arm around me, and yanked me under the quilt. His chest was broad and scorching hot. I quickly turned my back to him, but it still felt like I was pressed against a stove. My heart raced. Alexander Ling said casually, "In the army, we don't bother with those formalities. 2 men under 1 quilt is no big deal." "Ethan Lan, how do you train? You're skinny as a monkey." My face burned. I answered guiltily, "I've been weak since childhood. I only studied. I never learned martial arts." "Oh," he paused, then asked, "Married?" "No." I couldn't exactly tell him I was engaged to him and had run away on our wedding day. Even if he'd run away too. Alexander Ling didn't suspect a thing. A man should build a family and a career. You should marry. My thoughts shifted, and I couldn't help asking, "What about you, General? You should marry too." Alexander Ling considered it, then said, "I did, actually. The Emperor granted the marriage personally. A great honor, but I haven't met the woman." "Married, but you haven't met her?" Of course I knew he hadn't. On the wedding day, both of us ran, but I had to pretend I knew nothing. Alexander Ling smiled. "I'd never met her anyway, and there's no feeling between us. I'm a soldier. How would I get along with a gentle young lady from a scholarly household? Better to avoid it for now. Let her breathe." I hadn't expected that. I froze. "Enough. Sleep." Alexander Ling tucked the quilt around me and said no more. His steady breathing came from behind me, but I couldn't sleep at all. It was my first time sharing a bed with a man while fully awake. My heart hammered nonstop. Under the quilt, it was warm, too warm. I felt like I was suffocating. And Alexander Ling's breath kept brushing the back of my neck. I struggled to turn over and face him. His features were sharp and handsome. His eyes were closed, lashes thick and long. His lips were faintly red. A bluish shadow of stubble dusted his jaw. In the past, a man's stubble had always seemed crude to me. On him, it looked strangely natural. "What are you staring at? Go to sleep," Alexander Ling said, eyes still shut. I jumped, then hurriedly turned back around. I pressed a hand to my chest. My heart was about to burst. I tried to slow my breathing, but my thoughts were a tangled mess. The moment I closed my eyes, his face rose up in my mind. I lay there for ages, still wide awake. Alexander Ling truly fell asleep. He shifted slightly, and through our layers he pressed closer. His breathing deepened. I didn't know how long I lay there. Then he moved again. Not his upper body. Something lower pressed against my backside. His breathing stayed even. I panicked, at a loss. Carefully I reached back to push it away. But the moment I touched it, I understood. I clamped down on the urge to scream. I rubbed my hand frantically against my clothes, but I couldn't erase the feeling. I had touched him. I didn't sleep all night. The next day, I worked on the general's documents with dark circles under my eyes. Lucas Yang saw me yawning non-stop and kindly made me a cup of tea. I downed it and took the cup out to refill it with hot water. I hadn't even left the tent when I heard General Ling talking with Lucas Yang outside. "Lucas, lately have you know?" "Which thing, General?" "That thing." I'd never heard General Ling sound so hesitant. I couldn't help listening harder, curious what that thing meant. Lucas Yang still sounded lost. "General, what are you talking about?" Alexander Ling coughed and said awkwardly, "Lately I've been restless, especially in the mornings. My pants are always, What was wrong with his pants? I was completely confused. Lucas Yang went, "Oh, General, just find a woman." Alexander Ling said, "Dirty." Lucas Yang laughed smugly. If you won't go to women, then just hold it in. Through the tent wall, I finally understood. I curled my lip, silently cursing these men for being so filthy, though General Ling did seem to keep himself clean. Then I heard Alexander Ling ask, "Do you ever feel that way about men?" Me, Lucas Yang yelped, "General, you're not into me, are you? Get lost. You're a lout. You think you're worthy?" Alexander Ling snapped and strode off. Inside the tent, I went ice cold. He wasn't into Lucas Yang. So could it be he was into me? If that was true, then Alexander Ling running away made sense, because he didn't like women. But right now I was dressed as a man, and he thought I was a man. Didn't that mean I was in danger? And thinking back to last night, I had to pack up and run. No matter how I looked at it, it wasn't safe. If my identity wasn't exposed, he might set his sights on me. If it was exposed, a woman disguised as a man sneaking into the army was a serious crime. No, I had to run, and fast. But the camp was tightly guarded. Escaping wouldn't be easy. And I slept in the same tent as Alexander Ling. Any movement in the night, and he'd notice. How was I supposed to get away? I thought it through for a long time and finally came up with a foolproof plan. Once I felt better, I went back to serving at Alexander Ling's side, but I stayed wary. I started paying attention to the night patrol schedule. There were 3 patrol teams. They rotated every 2 hours. During the shift change, there was a brief gap. If I wanted to run, it had to be during the change at the hour of Hai or the hour of Cho, as long as I could slip past Alexander Ling. I quietly befriended one of the kitchen men and got a jug of strong liquor. He said even an ox would drop dead drunk after 1 jug. If I could get Alexander Ling to drink it and pass out, I'd have my chance. The first day of the 9th month. The night was pitch black, perfect for escaping. I set out the liquor in advance. As soon as Alexander Ling came in, I pulled him over to sit and have a few drinks. He looked surprised. "Why are we drinking out of nowhere?" I put on a miserable expression. "General, I'm in a bad mood. Will you have a few cups with me?" "What happened?" As he asked, he sat across from me and filled both cups. I gave him the excuse I'd prepared. "I have someone I love. She's a virtuous young lady from a good family. Her parents won't approve our marriage. That's why I left Capital City." It also hinted that I liked women, so he shouldn't get any ideas about me. Alexander Ling raised his cup. "Heartbroken? Then drink and drown it. Tomorrow when you wake up, all your troubles will be gone. Come on, bottoms up." He drained it in 1 swallow, then stared at me as if blaming me for hesitating. My goal was to get him drunk. I obviously didn't want to drink, so I sighed. "General, it hurts." "If it hurts, drink. Let's get drunk together." Before I could stop him, Alexander Ling snatched my cup, pinched my jaw, and poured a full cup of burning liquor straight into my mouth. The fiery liquid ran from my lips down my throat. I coughed until my eyes watered. He nodded in satisfaction. A real man should be able to drink 1,000 cups without falling. A real man, my ass. Furious, tears gathering at the corners of my eyes, I immediately filled his cup again. "General, drink." Alexander Ling didn't hesitate. He took it and drained it. Then he poured me another cup. The clear liquid looked harmless, but it burned. My stomach began to ache faintly. Then I understood. The only way to outdrink Alexander Ling was to be a better drinker than he was. But after 2 cups of strong liquor, his eyes were still clear. The plan was doomed. I wanted to stop, but the general refused. He kept saying he was helping me forget my troubles, and kept pouring with quick, practiced hands, determined not to quit until I was drunk. He meant well, but in the end, I drank myself unconscious. When I woke again, it was already late morning. I was on my narrow cot. My clothes were still in place. I probably hadn't exposed anything. A hangover left my head splitting. I lay there a long time until the pain eased. Only then did I have the clarity to think back on last night. My memories came in shards, scattered everywhere. I tried to force them into order, but all I could catch were a few stray lines. It didn't seem like I'd said anything too outrageous. After I threw up, a spark went off in my head. I dimly remembered saying something I shouldn't have, something about cursing the emperor for being blind and ruining people's marriages. I was finished. That was blatant disrespect. If Alexander Ling heard it, he could have me executed, along with my whole family. I was already in trouble. Now I'd piled on even more. My head? I really wasn't going to keep it. Just as despair hit, A sharp, sweet voice rang out beyond the tent. "Why isn't Brother Ling back yet?" Lucas Yang answered at once. "My little ancestor, the general, is buried in work. How would he have time to keep you company? Then I'll wait for him in his tent." As she spoke, the woman lifted the flap and strode in. She walked straight into me, and we froze, staring at each other. She was dressed as a man, too, but her makeup was far more polished. Powdered face, carefully drawn brows, hair pinned neatly into a bun. Even in men's clothes, her figure was impossible to miss. Bright, lively, and beautiful. Next to her, I looked rough and plain, no makeup, and the most ordinary servant's outfit in the unit. Standing side by side, we looked like Pearl Ming and a clod of dirt. "Who is she?" the woman demanded. Lucas Yang rushed to explain. "He's the general's clerk. Miss Ming, camp isn't a place for you. It's all men here. Don't come causing trouble. Hurry back to capital city." Miss Ming pointed at me. "If it's a place for men, why is she allowed to be here?" Lucas Yang blinked, utterly baffled. "Ethan Lan is... what's wrong?" With Miss Ming standing right here as proof, and he still couldn't tell I was a woman? I didn't know whether to feel secretly pleased or just want to laugh and cry. I got up to straighten the cot, poured Miss Ming a cup of tea, and had her rest in the tent. Then I slipped out with Lucas Yang. From him, I learned the girl was Pearl Ming, the old general's cherished daughter. She'd grown up with Alexander Ling. When she heard we'd made camp in the western suburbs outside capital city, she'd sneaked over on her own. She'd always liked Alexander Ling, and because she was spoiled, she often came to camp to play around. Alexander Ling always indulged her. Something stirred in me, and I couldn't stop myself from asking Lucas Yang, "Did the general run from the wedding because he likes Miss Pearl?" "No. The general only sees Miss Ming as a younger sister." Lucas Yang shot me a look. "You even know about him running from the wedding?" I mumbled a couple of vague replies. Just then, Alexander Ling returned. His cold glance swept over me. I ducked my head at once and hurried back into the tent to serve. Pearl Ming sat inside, sulking. The instant she saw him, it was as if she'd found her savior. Her rosy lips pouted. "Brother Ling," Alexander Ling frowned. "What is it now?" Pearl Ming pointed at me. "Who is she? Why is she in your tent?" Alexander Ling looked confused as well. "Ethan Lan is my clerk." "What's wrong?" Pearl Ming glared, furious. "Your clerk? Brother Ling, are your eyes broken?" She strode over and grabbed at my clothes. "Miss Ming?" I hissed, clutching my collar tight. Pearl Ming clearly meant to tear it open. "I'll show you her true face." She came from a military family. Her strength was terrifying. I couldn't pry her off. Panicking, I grabbed her hair bun. "Ah!" Pearl Ming shrieked, but her grip only tightened. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. To protect myself, I could only yank harder. The two of us twisted together like knotted rope, neither able to break free. Alexander Ling's brow drew tighter and tighter. At last he roared, "Enough! Let go!" Pearl Ming wouldn't let go, and I didn't dare to. Alexander Ling strode over and tore us apart, one hand on each of us. Then he snapped. "A man and a woman rolling around like that, tearing clothes, yanking hair. You've picked up every filthy trick from street thugs. What kind of behavior is this? Pearl, you're going back to capital city right now. Don't let me see you again. Ethan Lan, copy The Art of War 10 times from the shelf." Pearl Ming's eyes brimmed with tears, full of grievance. In the end, she stamped her foot and stormed out. I lowered my head and went to the desk to copy. As I wrote, my eyes brightened with a sudden thought. I could use offending the Ming family's young lady as an excuse to leave the camp. While I copied, the general sat nearby. His gaze was like two blades, as if it could bore holes straight through me. I didn't dare lift my head. My nerves were stretched tight until I finally finished all 10 copies. My wrist was numb. I set down the brush and rubbed at it. When I looked up, I didn't expect Alexander Ling to be standing beside me, looking down. General. I sprang to my feet, head lowered. He let out a quiet sigh. "Ethan Lan, why are you so delicate?" I didn't know how to answer. Then he said, "There aren't many men as good-looking as you. Such fine brows and eyes, red lips, white teeth. If you weren't so stubborn, I'd almost think you were a woman." I stared up at him in shock and met his eyes. His gaze was steady and bright, but softer than usual. It caught me off guard, and my heart began to pound out of control. I pinched my palm in secret and forced myself to calm down. "General, I angered Miss Pearl. My offense is unforgivable, Please expel me from the camp." Alexander Ling lifted an eyebrow. "What nonsense is that? Why would I expel you over a woman?" "But Miss Pearl isn't your closest person?" I couldn't tell whether he saw Pearl Ming as a sister or someone he liked. But I was just a young scholar he'd known for less than a month. He didn't need to offend her for my sake. "There aren't many people in this camp who can read and write," Alexander Ling said. "If you leave, who's going to work for me?" He shot me a glare and casually picked up my copied pages to look them over. "But Miss Pearl is angry. Don't you need to appease her?" I tried one last time. Alexander Ling said lightly, "It doesn't matter. I don't like women anyway." My heart dropped as if I'd fallen into an ice pit. So he really didn't like women. If he ever found out I was a woman, his fury would never end. I lowered my head, flexing my aching wrist, desperately searching for a way out. There wasn't one. "Your wrist hurts?" He noticed the movement and reached out, taking my wrist in his hand. He rubbed it gently. His fingertips were rough. The friction against my skin tickled, then spread from my wrist through my whole body. My face burned. I jerked my hand back. "General, it doesn't hurt anymore," I stammered. Alexander Ling laughed. "The general doesn't hurt. Your wrist does." He could actually joke. The smile on his face deepened. The killing chill was gone. He was unexpectedly warm, like sunlight, comforting, easy to be near. For some reason, my heart felt as though it were basking in winter sun. I was so comfortable I couldn't speak. Instinctively, I wanted to move closer. He felt like the sun that could warm me. Too bad he didn't like women. I couldn't sleep. The general was already fast asleep on the cot, but my eyes stayed wide open. I wasn't tired at all. My mind was full of that smile from earlier, and the accidental brushes of skin between us before that. I'd never met a man who made my heart race like this. Was this what it meant to like someone? But he didn't like me. No, he should like me, when he thought I was a man. I sighed silently. Sex was decided at birth. Desire couldn't be changed. With an engagement hanging over me, he and I were doomed to never be together. Listening to his faint snore, I didn't know where the courage came from. I slipped out of bed and crept to his side. The snoring continued. In the darkness, his face slowly came into focus. Peaceful in sleep, lips faintly red, skin fair, features sharp and handsome. His lips must be very soft. The thought came from nowhere. The next moment, my body moved before my mind could stop it. I bent down and kissed him once. They really were soft. Who would have thought the ruthless, battle-hardened general's lips would be this soft? I touched my own mouth, savoring the feeling. It was unbelievable. I couldn't help reaching out to touch his lips again. Before I could linger, Alexander Ling suddenly opened his eyes. My fingers were still at his mouth. I froze as if struck by lightning. I didn't dare breathe. The general sighed. "I told you long ago, even when I'm asleep, I can sense any sound around me." I was too stunned to speak. "From the moment you walked over, I was already awake." He stared at me, then seized my wrist and yanked. In one swift motion, he rolled and pinned me beneath him. "General," I cried out, and in the next instant, his fierce, storming kiss swallowed the sound. When it finally eased, we were both slightly breathless. I shoved at him in panic. He sat up, eyes still locked on mine. He seemed to struggle for a moment before he said in a low voice, "Ethan Lan, from now on, stay with me." I didn't know what to say. My mind was a mess. I avoided his gaze. In the end, I clenched my teeth, sprang off the bed, and ran out of the tent. Alexander Ling didn't chase me. When I passed soldiers changing shifts, they only greeted me casually. Maybe I didn't look suspicious at all. No one thought anything of it. I ran and ran until I reached the edge of the camp. The night wind was bitter, the bright moon hung high. Everything around me was deathly quiet. But my heart hammered, my face burned. Heat surged through my body until I began to sweat. He said he wanted me to stay with him. He knew I was a man, and he still wanted me to stay. But in truth, I was a woman. My thoughts knotted tighter and tighter until I couldn't make sense of anything. The wind kept blowing. After a long time, I sneezed, and sudden clarity hit. This was the perfect time to run. I didn't have anything valuable anyway. I'd come empty-handed. I could leave empty-handed. When I lifted my foot, it felt as if an invisible force tugged me back. I knew that if I left, I might never see Alexander Ling again. We were never meant to be. Why force it? I sniffed hard and strode away, forcing myself not to look back. The army was camped outside the city, more than 60 miles from capital city. Miss Pearl had ridden half a day to reach us. I walked on 2 legs until dawn and had covered only a little over 6 miles. Luckily, I caught a ride in a carriage. The driver agreed to take me. The moment I climbed in, exhaustion hit and I fell asleep. When I woke again, we were only a few miles from capital city. In that case, I might as well go back. I'd run from my wedding and met my new husband. Then I ran again, only to end up back in the capital city where I'd grown up. I shook my head with a sigh, feeling both ridiculous and miserable. I walked, rested, then walked again until I reached the back gate of the residence. I knocked and waited. What would father do when he saw me? Had punishment for running away already come down? Would my parents be dragged into it and executed? As I spiraled, the back gate opened. The one who answered was my personal maid, Chloe. The moment she saw me, Chloe burst into tears. "Miss, you still remember how to come home. I thought you didn't want us anymore. Madam cries every day. She sent people everywhere to look for you. Where have you been?" My throat tightened. "I'm back." "Miss, you've lost weight." Still crying, Chloe pulled me inside. She hurried to prepare my bath and clothes, then went to inform my parents. It went on for 2 whole days. After half a month of rest, my mood finally settled. Yet, in the quiet of night, I couldn't stop thinking about that man. The way he'd pressed close and given me warmth. I wondered how the general was now. As for where I'd gone after running away and what I'd done, I kept my mouth shut. My parents didn't ask. They let me recover in peace, probably afraid I'd run again. That day, Chloe went to pay her respects to Madam. When she came back, her expression had changed. She said in a panic, "Miss, something's wrong. Someone from the general's residence is here." My spirits lifted. "Who is it? What are they here for?" Chloe hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't know." "What good are you?" I poked her forehead and had to go see for myself. The general's residence was Alexander Ling's home. I didn't know whether he'd come in person or why. I desperately wanted to see him, but I was terrified he'd discover me, so I hid in a corner of the front hall garden, waiting for the visitor to pass. After a long while, someone finally came out of the front hall. I looked, and it was someone I knew. Lucas Yang. He wasn't here to arrest me, was he? Lucas Yang was speaking with the steward. I caught the words "break the engagement," and I understood at once. Alexander Ling had confirmed he didn't like women, so he'd decided to end the engagement so neither of us would be held back. I understood the logic. Still, my heart tasted wrong, sour and bitter, like I'd swallowed a mouthful of herbal medicine. Just as I turned to leave, Lucas Yang barked, "Who's there?" A sword rang as it left its sheath. The steward hurried to say, "It's our young lady, General Yang. Don't be alarmed, miss." The steward rushed over and grabbed me, trying to haul me out. I struggled. "Uncle Bai, I'm not going over." The steward pleaded, "Miss, don't be afraid." "No, Uncle Bai, I am afraid, but I wasn't strong enough to break free." Lucas Yang came over too, and in the end, I had no choice but to face him head-on. Clang. Lucas Yang stared at me, frozen. His sword slipped from his hand and hit the ground. He looked like an idiot. I forced a dry smile. "Lucas Yang, long time no see." It took him ages to find his voice. "You, Ethan Lan?" "It's me, heh." "You're actually a woman," he shouted. Then, as realization hit, he shouted again, "Why are you here?" Uncle Bai panicked too, standing to the side helpless. "General, Brother Ling?" Lucas Yang clamped onto my arm, gripping so hard I couldn't pull away, and called toward the front hall. I suddenly understood, and couldn't help looking that way. "Lucas Yang, why are you shouting? Where are your manners?" The voice I'd been aching to hear cut through the air. A tall, handsome figure stepped out of the front hall. Sunlight fell around him in a halo, as if a god had descended. I stared at him, stunned. Half a month of longing turned into an ache I couldn't name, lodged in my throat until I couldn't say a word. When the general saw me, he froze too, then strode straight over. "Ethan Lan," he said, voice hard. Uncle Bai said weakly, "General Ling, this is our young lady, Evelyn Huo." Alexander Ling didn't speak. He stared at me, then suddenly yanked me into his arms as if he wanted to press me into him. "General Ling, men and women shouldn't touch like this," Uncle Bai shouted beside us. "Oh, Uncle Bai, let my brother talk to Miss Huo properly," Lucas Yang said, dragging Uncle Bai away. "This engagement won't be broken now. Go tell Master Huo." I didn't know how long he held me before Alexander Ling finally let go. "Why did you leave?" he demanded coldly. Guilt twisted inside me. I lowered my head. "General, as you can see, I am a woman." "So what if you're a woman?" Alexander Ling was still furious. I clenched my teeth and looked up. "You said you don't like women." He froze. For the first time, confusion and helplessness flickered across that decisive face. Once I started, the rest poured out more easily. "General, the one you like is the scholar Ethan Lan, not Miss Evelyn Huo of the Huo family. It was wrong of me to dress as a man. If you want to punish me, then punish me. But I won't let you go against your own heart and marry a woman you don't like at all. I agree to end the engagement. We weren't meant to be. I hope you find the one you truly like soon." "Evelyn Huo." He grabbed my hand, then realized he was squeezing too hard and eased his grip just slightly. Through clenched teeth, he said, "Do you have any idea what you put me through?" I even started questioning whether I liked men. When I said I don't like women, I meant I don't like that woman Pearl Ming, not all women. Whether you're a man or a woman, I like you. I was speechless. So he didn't like men? "Do you know how long I searched for you after you disappeared? Do you know how much I suffered?" He kept accusing me of being heartless. I looked up at him. Sure enough, dark shadows circled his eyes. He clearly hadn't slept well in a long time. Alexander Ling snorted. "I planned to break the engagement, then go look for you with everything I had. Whether I found you or not, I would never marry. And who knew you were my fiancée all along? Evelyn Huo, you really made a fool of me." "Well, that," I lowered my head, ashamed. "Then what do we do? What do we do?" Alexander Ling lifted my chin. The smile in his eyes was impossible to hide. "We get married soon." The bridal chamber glowed in candlelight, while outside, swallows darted past in pairs. I sat in the wedding room, listening to the thunder of gongs and drums beyond the door. Cheers and laughter surged on without end. Alexander Ling truly was impatient. That very day, he hired a matchmaker to pick an auspicious date and set the wedding for 7 days later. When the day finally arrived, I was the calm one. With a red veil over my head, I bowed with him to heaven and earth, completed the rites, and was escorted into the bridal chamber. When he took my hands, I could feel his excitement. The great general, who never so much as blinked at killing. Yet, on his wedding day, his hands actually trembled. His men and closest friends all came to offer their congratulations. Even old General Ming had someone deliver a wedding gift. They said Miss Pearl Ming, in a fury, had run away from home, only to be caught and dragged back, then locked up in confinement. The red candles sent up thin trails of smoke. I sent Chloe outside to see to things and kept myself occupied for a long while. At last, Alexander Ling arrived. There was a trace of wine on him, yet his eyes were unusually clear. The moment he saw me, the wonder in his gaze was impossible to hide. "Husband." I rose with a faint smile and greeted him with a salute. I had changed into a vivid red set of men's clothes. The red made my skin look even paler. My long hair was tied up. With powder and rouge, my beauty held a sharper, bolder edge. Alexander Ling smiled. "Greetings, my wife. Should I call you Evelyn Huo or Ethan Lan?" I met his eyes, my gaze steady and unyielding. "Whether I'm Evelyn Huo or Ethan Lan, I'm still me." "Yes," he murmured the word, strode over and pulled me into his arms. Then came a burning kiss. On a spring night, in a warm bridal bed, a single moment was worth 1,000 pieces of gold.